A lot of us have a dream of fully autonomous agents that do things for us while we sleep or are out running errands, and I think it's why projects like OpenClaw have so much appeal. Anthropic just released scheduled tasks in Claude Cowork, and I think it takes us one step closer to full autonomy with AI agents. Now, I typically like to stay off of the AI hype train and focus more on genuine value that I think will continue being important years from now, things like agent skills, for example. But I really do think that scheduled tasks is one of those features that is really going to change how we work with AI agents. If you don't really use Cowork and you're more of a Claude Code user like I am, scheduled tasks aren't available in Claude Code. I'm not sure if they'll become available sometime in the future. But anyway, I'm going to share with you a plugin that I built that is going to give you all of the same capabilities for scheduling tasks in Claude Code. And it's something I've been using to automate a lot of really useful workflows, which I'm excited to share with you right now. So let me first share with you a few demos of what's possible with scheduled tasks, and then I'll show you how to use it in Claude Cowork and also in Claude Code using this plugin. Probably the most straightforward use case of this is having some kind of daily summary or brief. So I have a few here, and these are ultimately just prompts that Claude will run on the schedule that you give it. We can take a look at the daily business brief. You can see what the prompt is. I want it to check my Google Calendar for today's meetings and summarize my schedule for both today and tomorrow so I can see what's coming up ahead, check all my unread emails and categorize them, and then summarize them by priority, and then check to see if there were any sentry errors overnight in my production server. So these are just specific things I want it to already have ready waiting for me when I start my day in the morning. And you can see on the left, I have some scheduled tasks that have already ran these last few days. So if I click on, for example, the daily news brief for this morning, I can click on this report that was generated. And this is for my daily AI news brief. So I'm going to get a report of all the trending AI news. And this is really nice to not have to even open Claude Code or trigger a slash command or a skill, but just have this be ready for me when I open up my computer and just be able to read what is the top news right now. Claude Sonnet 5 spotted in the wild? I hope so. But yeah, having daily briefs or reports are one really useful use case, and it's super easy to set them up. Here's another example of a weekly scheduled task that Claude Code set up using the plugin I'm going to share with you, where every week on Monday morning, this report is generated and it pulls all of the transactions data from my Stripe account. So it's able to get a pulse on my business, run an analysis, and again, this is just going to be waiting for me. Another use case I'm really excited about, which I just started this morning, is I have an idea bank for notes that I want to publish to Substack, which are just kind of like tweets on X. And I have a scheduled task that runs every morning using specific skills from Claude Code to write in my voice and following best practices for writing Substack notes. It'll use those skills and it'll write 3 notes from the idea bank that I have and then put them into this staging area for me. This runs now automatically every morning so that I always have notes ready to be posted. So I can just come over here and copy this text directly and then go over to Substack and it's ready to post just like that. But you could even automate this as part of the scheduled task, which I have before, where because I have Playwright MCP and Claude is able to control the browser, it can actually go as far as scheduling 3 separate tasks to post each individual note at different times in the day. So you could automate that entire flow. Right now, I'm keeping it with the staging area because I actually want to review them and just make any tweaks that I want before actually posting them. But you can see how incredibly powerful this is. Finally, one other use case, which I'm also really excited about, is the ability to just brain dump into a specific file throughout the day. So I'll usually record things in here with voice. like something I learned or a fact I want to share with people on Substack or YouTube, or maybe I have an idea for a YouTube video, etc. I'll just voice record it into this brain dump, and this file will grow throughout the day. And I have a scheduled task that runs every night, which I'll show you here, and you can see the prompt for this workflow. But essentially, it's going to read the brain dump, and then it's going to parse all of the different line items in the brain dump and then organize them into the appropriate destination files. And that includes the context system for my personal assistant. So if I head over to my user level.claude folder, here you can see I have a core context system, and I have a bunch of files in here like identity, preferences, projects, relationships, even personal stuff. And the scheduled task will organize all of that brain dump into these core context files. So it keeps my personal assistant up to date consistently. And I don't have to worry about this anymore. I don't have to plug it in using hooks every time I talk to Claude. Now it just runs on an automated schedule without me ever noticing it in the background. So those are actual use cases that I'm using it for, and I feel like I'm barely scratching the surface. Honestly, I'm excited to automate so much more with scheduled tasks. But here are some examples of the best use cases that Anthropic actually recommends. So like we covered earlier, you could do daily briefings or weekly reports. You could also do recurring research. So if you need to do competitor research, for example, I really like this idea of file organization. So if you have a folder where you just tend to dump files and you want something to always keep it organized, then you can do that with scheduled tasks. And then if you are working with a team, you can send team updates either through email or Slack or Discord. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of all the things you can do with this new feature. Now I'm going to show you how to do it first in Claude Cowork and then in Claude Code using the plugin. If you're enjoying this content, consider subscribing to my newsletter on Substack, where I share actionable AI tips and techniques every week, as well as more in-depth tutorials. To get started, you're going to want to update your Claude desktop app, and I'm on Mac. I'm currently on version 1.1.4498, and scheduled tasks are available to me. I read online someone complaining that it wasn't yet available on Windows. I can't validate if that's true, but if it's not available for you on Windows, then you can definitely check out my plugin after this, which should work in Claude Code across all platforms. Once your app is updated, you're going to see a new menu item on the sidebar here. So you can open the sidebar on the left, and then you'll see this scheduled menu. So when you click on that, you will probably not have any tasks here, but any scheduled tasks will show up here. You can also invoke it using a / command in Claude Cowork, which is /schedule. And here's the caveat about running scheduled tasks in Cowork. Both your computer and this app have to be running for the scheduled task to actually succeed. So if your computer is off, then the task won't run. But also, if your computer is on and you don't have this Claude app open, then the task also won't run. Claude Cowork will attempt to run those tasks the next time you open up the app. So it'll have that backlog of missed tasks, and it'll try to run them the next time you open the app. But again, that's not guaranteed. So that is one drawback of scheduled tasks in Cowork. If you use the plugin in Claude Code, you won't have the problem of having to have the app open because it's ran natively on your computer. So it doesn't depend on the Claude app itself. But anyway, to create a new task, you can just click on this button. And essentially what a task is just a prompt. And there's a lot of ways you can construct this prompt. If we look at this example of a daily briefing, the prompt is check my Google Calendar for today's meetings and summarize my unread emails, highlight anything urgent. So you can give just a straight prompt like that, but you can also invoke specific / commands or skills or specify certain MCP servers. And that's because this is built into Claude Cowork. It's using Claude Code under the hood. So however you have your Claude Code configured, it's going to be able to use all of those skills and MCP servers that you have. So here, as a simple example, I'm creating an email brief where I want Claude to organize all of my unread emails for the day and give me a high-level summary with emails ranked by priority. The nice thing is you can also choose the model that you want to run it on. So for a task like this, you probably don't need Opus, and you can save some usage by using Sonnet 4.6. You can also select the folder that you want to work in, since this is using Claude Cowork, which spins up a VM on your local system based on your working directory. And then at the very bottom is where you're going to specify the frequency. We can set it up hourly, daily, weekday, or weekly. You can also set it to manual, which essentially just becomes a / command. For example, for this one, I can set it to daily and then choose the time that I want to run it at, which is 9 a.m. You can pretty much set any kind of schedule that you want here. Once you're done, you can hit save, and then you'll see your new scheduled task here, and you can click into it. If later on you want to read what the actual instructions were, you can edit it here and adjust the prompt. And you can also run it now. And I recommend doing this for all of your new scheduled tasks to test them and just make sure that it actually works so that it's ready to go when you want it to run on an automated schedule. So I can click run now and we can view it here. You'll notice that it gets added to this new section for scheduled. So now you can see this task is kicking off, and because I'm connected to my MCP servers in Claude Code, it's able to access all of my emails. Notice at the bottom also that we have Sonnet 4.6, just like we set up inside of the task. So this is just going to be your normal Claude Cowork now, running the prompt that we gave it. Here we can see my email brief with the emails organized by priority and a high-level overview. We have some feedback for one of my products, and then new subscriber to the newsletter, and then some lower priority stuff. So if you're someone that gets a lot of emails for your business, you can imagine how incredibly useful this would be to have this brief every single morning and all of the urgent matters surface to you right away with this high-level summary. Now, if you want the ability to schedule tasks just like in Claude Cowork, but do it in Claude Code, which is my preferred way, then you can head over to the AI Launchpad Marketplace. It's a free marketplace that I have on GitHub, and you can install the plugin I'm about to show you. So this plugin is going to have several scripts for actually creating the scheduled tasks, and it's also going to be packaged into this skill to make it really easy for Claude Code to know how to create these scheduled tasks. And it's basically going to be using the built-in cron tools in your operating system. Because it's a skill, you can just tell Claude that you want to schedule a task, and it should know that it has this new scheduler that it can use. So for example, create a new scheduled task that runs every night at 10 p.m. that looks at my project and finds any unused files or trash files, deprecated files, etc., that can be cleaned up to keep the project concise, or any files that are out of place and should be reorganized, and then creates a report and saves it to docs/plans. No action should be taken. This is just to create the report on the suggested cleanup for the project. It's automatically going to recognize that it needs to use this plugin to create the scheduled task. Claude is actually going to run it by you and then just make sure that everything looks correct before creating the scheduled task. It checked to make sure that this folder actually exists, and then it sees that there are some existing tasks. So it wants to add this new one, which is going to be nightly project cleanup report. Every day, 10 p.m. Yeah, that's right. Recurring frequency, and there's a timeout. So these things are kind of for safety so that it's not just running forever. And then it can actually give it specific permissions, only the needed permissions to keep the actions more safe rather than just giving it for example, bypass all permissions. And it can also specify if you have outputs for the scheduled task. For example, if you're going to generate a report like we are in this case, you can specify the output directory here. So it's telling me that the prompt is going to have Claude scan the full project, compare it against claude.md for structure conventions, identify unused files, etc., and then write a report to the docs plans. And I'll just say yes. So you can see my task got created, and I got this pop-up that a bash background activity was started. So that's normal because it is using bash to create these background tasks. There's also going to be a desktop notification in the same way when the task gets completed. So you'll actually be notified in the morning or whenever your task is scheduled, and you'll know that it successfully ran. And once you install the plugin, you can run it from any project, which means that in any project, you can go to your .claude folder, and within that project's .claude folder, you're going to have this new folder created called scheduler. And in here is where you're going to have all of the files for scheduled tasks. So you're going to have a registry JSON, which is a single JSON file that tracks all of your tasks. This is for my daily AI news brief. And here you can see the prompt for this. You can also see what the schedule is here, the working directory, the output directory, etc. For the nightly brain dump, we have these specific tools that we're allowing. Finally, here at the bottom, we have our new nightly project cleanup report. So you can always come in here and see what tasks you have, or you can just ask Claude, which is typically what I do, what are our active tasks, and it'll summarize basically this registry JSON for you. And then in this folder, you're also going to have 3 other directories. One is logs, which is just going to have a log for every single job that's ran. If you ever want to see what actually happened or if there was an error or anything, then you can click into one of these logs and you'll see everything that was ran. You also have results. So if you don't specify a output directory for running something, then the output from any job will just default to this results folder, and this will be organized by day. So you don't need to specify an output directory unless you want these things being saved to a specific place, in which case you can just tell Claude in that initial prompt. Finally, you have this wrappers folder, which is the actual script that Claude generates to run this scheduled task. This isn't super important, but if you wanted to look at what it actually generates underneath the hood, this is basically it. And here you can see for the daily Substack note, this is the prompt that we're passing to Claude. And it's basically running Claude in Bash with this input prompt. If you made it this far, I want to thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you got a lot out of it. And if you did, please hit the like and subscribe for more content like this. And if you are interested in moving towards more autonomous workflows, then check out these 2 videos on your screen for resolving linear issues end to end, and also working with agent teams to tackle bigger problems. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.